All right, hey everyone. This is Astro Talk with Gabe Stefan. So today I definitely want to talk about a main important event that's happening on January 10th, 2020. And I'm filming this, of course, on January 8th. So this is a couple days before the eclipse. So of course, hopefully you see this before, and of course you could definitely see this video afterwards, because of course you can kind of reflect on it. If you see a couple days later or something like that, you can kind of reflect on that event that happens on Friday. So it's very important to kind of remember what's going on that day universally. So, but before I get started on that exact eclipse, I want to bring up the fact that since this lunar eclipse ends the eclipse season this winter, I want to begin with the eclipse on December 25th or the 26th, depending on what part of the world you were in. So I want to kind of reflect on that eclipse, because I didn't start filming until after the eclipse. So first off, I just want to summarize where the eclipse happened and what was the type of energies that happened on the 25th and 26th. So the solar eclipse, which is a new moon, is where the sun and the moon meets up, but since it's an eclipse, it's near the ecliptic axis. So where the moon and the sun align with each other almost or pretty much perfectly. So of course, in some places in the world, they definitely were able to see it, and of course, other places were able to see as well, just because you weren't aligned in that view. However, it still counts as an eclipse that day. And with that being said, the solar eclipse where the sun and the moon met up, it was at 4 degrees of Capricorn, and it was also conjunct Jupiter at 5 degrees in Capricorn. So knowing that brought a lot of positivity. It brought some abundance into anything that needed to be cleared in our lives, because this solar eclipse revolved around the South Node, or K2, in which the South Node represents past lives or clearing. It's a very karmic point that's in the sky. That's where the nodes of the moon, that's the ecliptic axis that I was talking about. And with it being a solar eclipse, of course, the definitions of new moons, of course, you've heard interpretations of new moons, probably from different astrologers or what you see memes on social media and things like that. New moons usually are times we set intentions. It's time where you plant seeds. So, of course, over time it'll grow. But since this is a solar eclipse, it's very faded. So that eclipse revolved around a lot of clearing. I experienced that a lot, especially since Jupiter is involved. It revolves around clearings of old traditions, ways of thinking, belief systems, unwritten rules that society has put in place for us to be conditioned with since the day we were born. Some morals too as well, but like I said, with morals, of course, I didn't clear like my moral beliefs and stuff like that sit well with me. However, the way I deal with people and my relationships, it definitely helped that I had ended up clearing that, because I want to enter this new era that's going to be occurring very shortly, and be able to adapt to what I create and what kind of traditions I create and things like that. So, okay, so, and then of course in between eclipses, the past 2 weeks have been very faded times. I usually call it, like, of course, I get this term from Leo King, because he explains it very well. He's one of my mentors. He explains it very well. it's called the fate train. It's pretty much where everything, your actions, your choices, things you do, some of the things you begin, some of the things you end, were definitely fated. And it's very interesting, of course, with what's going on in the world. Of course, the tensions between U.S. and Iran and the possible war that probably could begin very soon. If it does begin in this period, it was definitely very fated, the universe. But everything that's happened with the lead up to a possible war was fated, in my opinion, because it happened during eclipse season. So, with that being said, let's just go ahead and go into lunar eclipse. I don't have anything else to point out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my camera. I'm going to bring it to my Surface Pro so you see the chart. What I'll be showing you is a chart of when the lunar eclipse exactly happens. And I definitely will explain it in the best way I can. And hopefully you follow along. So, okay, so bear with me. Okay, so lunar eclipse occurs on January 10th, 2020 at 2:21 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, of course, adjust to your time zones. Of course, if it's Central Standard Time, it'll be 1:21 and so forth, so forth. Okay, and this chart revolves around New York. So, of course, you'll adjust to your location as well. Okay, if you're thinking about looking at the chart yourself. Okay, so here we have a lunar eclipse happening, and of course the lunar eclipse revolves around the moon. And where's the moon located? At 20 degrees of Cancer. Okay, so I'll point it out right here. Okay, now since the moon is dignified here in Cancer, this is the moon's home sign. She is very happy here, usually, but of course she's been in a lot of tension here at home due to all the Capricorn stuff, but we'll get to that in a second. So, the moon, since it's being dignified, this lunar eclipse is very strong, okay? Now, it's somewhat considered a partial lunar eclipse because it's a little further away from the North Node here, which the moon is ruling as well. But it still will be very felt. And with this North Node, since this is a North Node lunar eclipse, this lunar eclipse is asking us to really feel our emotions, really be at home with our foundational security. This is a very, I would say, almost like a self-nurturing, or even just in general, a nurturing eclipse. And it's very important to feel, okay? This is not a time to cover up your emotions, all right? And the reason why, because it is, I'm gonna bring my pen, it is all opposing all of this Capricorn shit here. And this is a lot. So, of course, every full moon and lunar eclipse, the moon opposes the sun, as you see here. So the moon's at 20 degrees of Cancer. The sun is at 20 degrees of Capricorn. Okay? Now, not just that, the sun is also conjunct Mercury at 20 degrees of Capricorn, 6 minutes. So that's pretty much an exact conjunction. And so our souls, our minds will definitely be involved. And we also have Saturn here at 22 degrees. The moon will be making its opposition to Saturn as well in this lunar eclipse, which brings a heavy responsibilities, lessons, karma. Also represents father figures too. which is important to point out with Saturn. And then since Saturn is at 22 degrees, it's almost right on top of Pluto at 22 degrees as well, which this is a very intense, this is actually before, 2 days before, almost pretty much exactly 2 days before the infamous Saturn-Pluto conjunction, which I'm going to make a separate video about these two. Okay, so there will be a separate video about that. But what I want to point out is it seems like a lot of us would be weighted down by our responsibilities in the world, what we're trying to master here in our world. It's a lot of heavy energy. And like I said, when this lunar eclipse happens on Friday, I know a lot of people will be working, so they can't get the rest that they want. But if you can, this is a good time to get rest. It really is. I mean, this is a good time to like rest, take it easy, be at one with yourself, especially with your personal life. Be at one with yourself. Know the direction that you're going in life. That's very important too. And make sure that your emotions, the moon, make sure your emotions align with the direction you're going in life. Because, of course, Capricorn is pretty much the direction you're going in life, the mountain you're climbing. So if you're not happy with the direction you're going in, this lunar eclipse can be almost what I've said before, like a slap to your face kind of lunar eclipse. Because the moon's going to make you feel. It's going to make you want to feel. But if you're trying to put a facade on it, like a lot of Capricorns like to do, put a facade on it and say, oh, it's okay, I'm fine, no, I'm fine. You know, there's nothing wrong. You know, they try to put a smile on their face and still work through their pain. But this is a pain that you definitely have to release. This is definitely an eclipse that you have to be able to release your emotions. If you don't release your emotions, it's going to make the Saturn-Pluto, make you face reality once these two align. I find that very interesting that those two are aligning a couple days after this lunar eclipse, and that's very intense. And like I said, it's pretty much transforming something in our lives. It really is. It's definitely transforming some kind of structure, some type of thing that's been intense in our lives for the past year. It's been in our face. I have to say, it's been in our face. If there's something in your life that you're being forced to look at and being forced to change and being forced to transform through, and hopefully not to the point where it's like a forced collapse. But I mean, Pluto does represent destruction too. So it's very interesting that that's happening 2 days after this eclipse. One thing I do want to point out, though, there is some supportive energy, is Neptune at 16 degrees of Pisces. Even though it's a wide orb, it still would be making a trine to the moon at 20 degrees. And not just that, since it's making a trine to the moon, it's going to be making a sextile to the sun still. It's a wide orb, but I will count it. This is a very spiritually supportive eclipse. That's, I think, one of the positives to this eclipse. That's why I mentioned rest, if you can get rest, because Pisces does represent, you're sleeping and resting, and of course Neptune's at home in Pisces. So I think it's very important to get your rest if you can. Or meditation, yoga, doing things that are like healing methods, or anything that brings you at one, letting go of your ego. This is what Neptune is supportive of for this eclipse. Other energies I want to point out. So very interesting enough. Even though this is a separate energy, we have a wild card here that's going to really push things forward too, is Uranus in Taurus at 2 degrees. And the interesting part is it's been in retrograde, but it's going to be stationing. So meaning it stops its movement that day. And what's ended up happening is a couple hours later, for some it'll be on January 11th, depending on what part of the world you're in. But for some of us, it's going to happen hours shortly later. Uranus will station direct. It will begin to slightly move forward. And not just that, all of the planets will be moving forward. So this is a eclipse that, you know what, I'm going to explain that at the end. I'll explain my synopsis at the end of this eclipse in a second. So I'll get to Uranus in a second. But I just wanted to point that out. But very interesting enough, there's one little other thing I want to point out real quick here. Mars here in Sagittarius at 4 degrees. Of course, it's traveling through Sagittarius independently, confronting our beliefs, our experiences, our knowledge. It definitely wants to go out and experience and party and have its adventure through the world. But of course, it's making a semi-square to, which is a 45-degree angle, to Sun in Capricorn at 20 degrees and Mercury. And I find that very interesting because this is not a eclipse. This is not a time to really go out and, when I say like, you know, be at one, this is not a time, being at one is not going out and partying. Because I know a lot of Sagittarius, you know, they like to party. This is not a time of that, to be honest. Because of course then you can fall victim into who knows what. But I think this is definitely a time where you're definitely going to see people probably jumping out the window here too as well, with confrontations, people who don't want to be responsible. It kind of confronts Mars to be responsible here. And definitely either, of course, it's going to be in between all of this with our responsibilities, or definitely rest. So there could be a battle of that too, with Mars making weird aspects to this lunar eclipse. Okay, so let me turn this back around. Okay. Ooh, look at this. I'm glistening. Hold on. Let me. I was just like, whoa, oh, I'm glistening here. Okay, so let's wrap this up here. This is an intense lunar eclipse. I'm just gonna keep it real. It's a very intense lunar eclipse, excuse me. And it's very funny that Uranus, being the wild card, Uranus is a very unexpected planet, but it's definitely a progressive, moving forward energy. And it's very funny that that is going direct a couple hours later after that lunar eclipse. There definitely will be a turnaround and some unexpected events that's gonna may end up occurring that day. Let's be honest. And then of course, if you watch this after this happens, if you so come across this video after the eclipse, hey, maybe look at what happened that day and be like, oh shit, things did happen that day. Because as I recorded this before the eclipse, which is very important. So like I said, it can be a slap to some people's faces. Oh, and one thing I wanted to point out too, people who will be highly affected by this lunar eclipse will be where, if you know your natal chart or whatever, anyone who has anything between 20 degrees, 20 to 23 degrees of Cancer, Capricorn, Aries, or Libra, because these are all cardinal signs. Anyone who has anything in between those degree points will be highly affected by this eclipse. I could not stress that out. It could be if you have any planets in between that eclipse or any sensitive points in your chart in that eclipse, you will be highly affected by this somehow, some way. I'm not going to tell you exactly what, because I'm not someone who's going to tell you exactly what's going to happen, but the timing of events that may occur that day would be because of that lunar eclipse. Otherwise than that, I'm going to make a video about the January 12th, 2020 Saturn Pluto Conjunction, pretty much shortly after this, and how that coincides with the eclipse kicking that off. And also I will refer to my IG, my Instagram. I have the horoscope of that day highlighted too as well in my stories section. So you could definitely look that up in detail. I actually do talk about like the cycles and how it relates to the last time Saturn Pluto conjuncted in Capricorn, which was back in 1517, 1518. And of course the previous time in 1283 and 1284. So I kind of talk about that as well, and what was the outcomes of that, and what could be the possible outcomes after this one. So I think that's all for today. I'm trying not to make my videos very long, but this one I need to explain everything. So hopefully this lunar eclipse treats you well. I hope you get the rest that you deserve. If not, if you do have to work, please, please, please be patient with yourself. Make sure you're still feeling. Make sure you feel with your emotions authentically and genuinely. Do not put a facade up that day, because you will be hurting. Let me tell you, it will not be pretty putting a facade up that day. You have to release your emotions that day. You have to. Sorry for those who don't like to release their emotions. So, all right. Well, catch my next video. Please support my channel. Please follow me, share my videos, like them, comment, give me feedback. I would love to hear your feedback, and look out for my next video. Okay? Ciao.